Welcome back to another Home Hints from Border Home Inspections. Today I'm in the basement of a home where the homeowner has had numerous floods over the years and they're getting fed up with it and they really want to know, what can I do to stop this problem from happening in the first place? And that's today what we want to talk about. So in this case you can see that there's been some moisture come in, and I can use my moisture meter here to determine where the moisture is in the wall. So by putting the moisture meter on the wall, I can tell where the moisture starts and stops, so I know how bad it is. Oftentimes the moisture is in the exterior walls and not so much in the interior walls, so we know it's been more widespread if it's moved on into the interior walls. In this case we got a mold-like growth happening on the wall here, and when you have a flood in your basement, you pretty much have to do what these homeowners have done, and they have more to do, and that is cut the drywall out at about 2 foot mark. So they've done that and they're trying to dry the place up. But today what I want to focus on is, how do you prevent this moisture from coming in the first place, and where is it coming in? So there's only a few places it can come from. Of course, it can come from overground, through the windows and so on, or it can come up through under the floor, or it could be homeowner fault is what I call it, and that is not controlling the water from the outside, from the roof. So if your downspouts are not adjusted properly and so on. So we're going to go outside and take a look at the outside issues, and my guess is that we're going to find some areas where the moisture lies up against the foundation wall, and we're likely going to find some cracks in the exterior walls and stuff like that as well. So these are all things that I want to point out to you to try to help you figure out a way to prevent that water from getting into your basement in the first place. Because let's face it, once it's in here, it's a mess, and you're dealing with mold, you're dealing with repairs, insurance claims, and of course your health is affected by it. So let's stop the water from coming in the first place. Let's have a look. So when you're looking at foundations and why they leak, you have to ask yourself, what causes water to pressure up against the foundation wall? What is the source of the water? So sometimes we have the source of the water as being from the ground. It's just coming up out of the ground, the high water table, which we've had in the Midwest a lot lately. Other times it is controlling the water that lands on top of the ground, and that's probably the most. We can't control the water table, but we can control what lands on the ground and how that water moves once it hits the ground. One of the things that I like to do is make sure that the roof is draining properly, that the eaves troughs are directed away from the house. Also, when water falls next to your house, you have to make sure that you don't trap that water in like they're doing here. So not only is there a negative slope, but as water builds up in this area, it really can't move away because the concrete step is higher than the ground is over here. Another thing I'm noticing at this property is we have what's called a dry pour. So we've got one concrete cement truck comes and delivers its load, and then maybe it's 3 hours later before the next truck shows up, or whatever the case might be, and we have what's called a dry pour. So a seam where water, if there's enough pressure against the wall, water pressure, hydrostatic pressure, then that moisture will push right through the wall. Most of the time the water is coming at the base of the wall and is pushing in kind of under the floor and so on. But oftentimes it can also come through hairline cracks and dry pour cracks, any type of crack. So let's look around the other side and we'll see what we find over there. Well, this is a problem I see all the time, and that is that the concrete driveway has settled. It's all cracked, and as it settles, the moisture stays around the driveway, saturating the soil, and that makes the driveway crack even worse. So in this case, you can see here, I brought my level, and you can see that there's about 4 inches of slope difference just to here, and if you went to the other side of the driveway, there's probably about 10 inches difference. So all of the water is moving this way towards the house, and it's sitting here up against the foundation wall until it has somewhere to go. In this case, it's high here and it's high over there, so we've basically got a big dish and it's holding water. Of course, that water is going to make its way into the basement eventually. Even if only 10% of the water gets to the basement, it's still devastating. So correct the driveway for sure. In this case, it's cracked up pretty bad. Probably best to just remove it completely. Sometimes if it's just one big piece that's cracked and settled, you can mud jack it back into position, but that's not a cheap enterprise either. But it's necessary. You have to do it. So control the water that lands on the surface around the house, whether it's the driveway or just on the lawn. Let's look at some other issues that I see here. So on this side of the house, what I'm seeing is a crack that someone has tried to repair in the past. And when you see that, you know that it's because it's leaked in the past. As a home inspector, I'm looking for this sort of thing to tell me whether there's been problems in the past. Even a hairline crack like this one can cause some serious water intrusion into your basement. So it's pretty important that you try to control the surface water, as we've talked about before, but also, if necessary, you dig up the basement and you seal this crack from the outside. Trying to repair the crack from the inside, usually not very successful. So hopefully it doesn't come to that. Start by controlling the surface water as best you can, then get into trying to fix the cracks if it's still necessary. So as you can see here, someone has taken the time to move the downspout away from the house. They moved it along the fence and are draining it 20 feet away from the house, which is very, very smart. I recommend this on almost all my home inspections. It's easier, it looks nicer to drain it right next to the house and then just drain it about 6 feet away. But in a basement like this one where we know there's moisture, it's not doing the job. It's always best to drain the water to the front street if possible, where the street is either concrete or asphalt, and then the water moves away from your house entirely, right out of your neighborhood. If you drain the water as they are here into the backyard, guess what? It's going to soak into the ground, it's going to go right back to the water table, right back against this foundation. Always remember that your house, your foundation walls are like a hole in the ground. Wants to be filled with water, it's Mother Nature. So again, do everything you can. Control the water from the roof, control the water from the ground, and if you have a sump pump, make sure that it's installed correctly and working right. So let's recap. Some of the most common water intrusion problems that I come across here in the Midwest in my business would be a negative slope. Number one cause, negative slope. Improper fill would be another reason why water penetrates down next to the foundation wall. Windows at or below grade. Cracks in the foundation wall, or improper construction of the foundation wall. So for negative slope, you want to make sure that it's a positive slope. Use clay material as fill material. Make sure that your windows have good sealed window wells around them, and if possible, a plastic cover over the window to keep the rain and the snow and the weeds and everything else out. Cracks sometimes are going to require that you dig the basement up and put some sort of a water membrane on the foundation wall, or if it's a wood basement and construction was never done properly, then again you're going to have to dig the foundation up and properly make some corrections. So thanks for watching. I'm Alden, and this has been another Home Hints from Boater Home Inspections. Remember to subscribe.